It's a blemish on our society that some would like to ignore, but the reality is sex trafficking continues to be a global problem, with countless men, women, and children being lured into the secret world of sex for hire. But what if I told you that amid this very pandemic, there has been an increase in the supply of sex trafficking victims? To shed some light on this, I'm joined by John Cassells, a sex trafficking specialist at SIM Canada. Hey, John, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be with you.
It's such an important topic. And so I was quite startled when I learned through an article that you had posted that this continues to be an issue this very day. As we are all, sheltering in place, traffickers are still trying to find ways to keep this industry alive. Tell us what's happening.
Well, for one thing, we're in an unprecedented time where we have so many men who are sitting at home and they're restless and they're bored and they really want to get out into the community. They're viewing porn more than ever, and their appetite to purchase sexual services is heightened. And so we've not seen a noticeable decrease, I don't think, in the area of prostitution, which of course includes an awful lot of sex trafficking of women and children in our society.
And how do you know this, John? How do you know that this continues to be an issue during this pandemic?
Yeah, well, we're looking at all the various ways that we can measure the activities, and the strip clubs are now closed. The massage parlors are pretty much closed, although there's some activity that's hard to detect, and that's a whole other discussion. But the online prostitution ads, we're seeing as high a numbers as we've ever seen, and a lot of activity around that. So a little bit hard to count the numbers, but we see that there's a lot of online activity. Also, the police are reporting, there's various police sources that are reporting higher levels of young people being exploited and lured into sex industry activities right now.
Right now, so they're actually being lured. How are they being lured if they're supposed to be at home? How does that happen?
Well, young people are at home, but spending more time than ever and perhaps staying up all night on social media and meeting new friends. And so, according to law enforcement, the risk is higher, and they are seeing a rise in cases that concern them. The anti-human trafficking hotline for Canada, toll-free hotline 24/7, is also reporting a little bit of an uptick on women reaching out to them, concerned that they might be trafficked.
Wow. And so you were saying to me that the way that people are getting around this, I guess, first of all, are people afraid of catching the coronavirus? You had explained that there's almost this exclusivity with some of the victims as well to make sure that they are kind of protected during the transaction. Explain to me what kind of precautions people are taking.
Sure. Well, the men who buy sex are largely addicted to this type of behavior. They are by nature risk takers, for sure. But we're seeing it's not important, but we're seeing a change in the way prostitution is happening. The girls who are either advertising their own services or being advertised online by a trafficker, those girls and women are generally charging higher prices now, but higher prices because they're being asked by the customers to do out calls, and that means going out and doing car calls, meeting a man in the back seat of his car, or going to his house or his office or his a hotel room.
Wow. And so what are some of the signs that we can be aware of, as we might, many of us have young people in our homes. What are some of the signs that you could give us and tips that you can give us so that we could be aware of maybe our own family members, and if they are being lured into the world of sex trafficking?
Yeah, this is a very important point you bring up, and an important question for us to all be asking ourselves. I want your viewers to know that Um, uh, 20 and 30 years ago, we were seeing predominantly fatherless girls from broken homes, girls who received some kind of abuse in their younger years. Those were the girls that we were typically seeing in the sex industry. Today, we're seeing more and more mainstream kids, kids who don't have an abuse background, kids who are coming from families that are functioning quite well, kids who are perhaps on their way to university and on a career track. And those young people are being derailed and exploited in this way. So what you're really looking for is changes in behavior. A real distancing from friends and family, new friends, change in a personal schedule, just this increased irritability, secretiveness. I just encourage your viewers, if you have children who are in the range of 12 through 20 years old, particularly keep an eye on them and their online activities and changes for behavior. And certainly you can reach out to the anti-human trafficking hotline. You can certainly look for a variety of the anti-human trafficking organizations that operate in your area that will all be quite well equipped to help walk you through that.
So important. Thank you so much, John. Before we leave, I want to hear about your personal motivation. You know, you're a man who has stood against this horrible part of our society. And so, you know, we know that this industry is driven mostly by men. Why are you so passionate about this? And I know faith, your personal faith, plays a pivotal role in this.
Well, certainly. And from a Christian perspective, as somebody who believes the Bible is the Word of God, and I read how God directs us to stand up for those who are being oppressed and exploited in our communities, that is certainly the base motivation. But I've been a youth worker since 1984. And prostitution and human trafficking wasn't even on my radar. We didn't even have a term for human trafficking in those days. We just thought they were bad kids who were making bad choices and they had bad friends. And but through the years, I've worked with so many young people who have become exploited in the sex industry. Young people who you get personally attached to and you care very deeply about them, and to see how it robs them of their humanity. It destroys their dignity. They come out of the sex industry with severe mental health issues, even chronic medical conditions and addictions. And I've lost 3 young people that I've worked very closely with in the last 3 years due to sex industry exploitation. And so just out of just my experiences in the field of Christian youth ministry, I've seen the devastating effect, and I've seen that men so rarely engage on this issue because we think it's a women's issue, don't we? But it's a women's issue because of the behavior of men in our society. We need to do something about that.
Well, you are doing such important work. Thank you so much, John, for your time today.
Thank you for having me. God bless.